Hello everyone. Please tell me, which city are you listening from? What time is it there? Is everything okay? Or does it feel like someone's watching you? I live alone. It's something I say often to neighbors, to delivery drivers, to myself. There's a strange comfort in repeating it. A reminder, a protection, because once in the middle of the night, I saw something that shattered that truth completely. I saw myself lying next to me. It happened 3 weeks after I moved into a quiet top-floor apartment, just me and my thoughts. The place was simple white walls, creaky floors, and windows that looked out over rows of dimly lit rooftops. It felt peaceful. Until the night I woke up, without knowing why, and turned slightly in bed, and there I was lying beside me. At first my brain didn't process it. There wasn't panic, not right away, just confusion, a haze of half-sleep. The shape next to me was unmistakably me, same hair, same pajamas, same way. I curled slightly to the left, but I knew absolutely undeniably that I was already awake. And yet there was my body still, eyes closed, not breathing. I didn't scream, I didn't move, I just stared, frozen in place. Heart pounding so loudly, I was afraid it would wake me. After what felt like hours, the figure twitched just a little. Its eyelids fluttered, and for the first time, I noticed something was off. Its face was wrong. Not in a monstrous way, not exaggerated. Just emptier. The eyes opened slowly, and they weren't my eyes. They looked at me, but through me, past me, then very gently it smiled. Not like someone happy to see you, like someone who knows something you don't. I bolted from bed, fell to the floor, and scrambled for the light switch. When the room flooded with light, I was alone. The bed was undisturbed, no one beside me. No imprint in the pillow, no warmth, nothing, just me shaking. I tried to rationalize it, a dream, a hallucination, sleep paralysis. My therapist called it hypnagogic intrusion, a boundary between dreaming and waking. But the next night, it came back. This time, I didn't wake gradually. I snapped awake, eyes wide open, heartbeat already racing, and I felt it before I saw it, the weight. On the mattress beside me, the sound of breath, not mine. When I turned, it was already watching me, me again, same clothes, same face. But this time the eyes weren't blank, they were full of awareness, and hate. I'm ready now, it whispered. Its voice was like mine but hollowed out, like someone had drained the warmth. Then it sat up. I didn't. It moved slowly, precisely, and got out of bed. I still couldn't move. It stood there, tall, shadowed, and leaned close. I felt its breath on my cheek, and it whispered, "Go back to sleep, ill. Take it from here." I don't remember anything after that. I woke up on the living room floor. The door was still locked. No signs of entry, no signs of anyone else except the bedroom window was open, and I never opened it now. I'd sleep on the couch, avoid the bedroom entirely, but I still feel it, watching, waiting, and sometimes just before I drift off, I hear footsteps. My footsteps pacing in the bedroom last night. I woke up and saw someone standing in the hallway mirror. It was me, not a reflection, a second version of me, same clothes, same face, smiling. Then it walked out of the frame, and now I don't know which version of me is writing this, or which one is waiting in the dark, because when I finally worked up the courage to check the bedroom again, the bed was made, and someone had left a note on the pillow for words, "Thanks for the body." I've never had a twin, not officially, not medically, not biologically, but every time I fall asleep, I feel someone slipping into my place behind my face, inside my skin, and everyone I know swears they've seen me during the hours I was supposed to be dreaming. They say I talk differently, walk heavier, smile longer, stare too long. They say I'm off, but I was never there. It started as a joke at first. Late night texts from friends. Nice to see you earlier, bro. You didn't say hi, but damn, you looked tired. Why'd you ignore me outside the station? Except I hadn't left the house, I'd been asleep. Deep sleep, hours of it. I chalked it up to confusion. Lookalike sleepwalking maybe, until the sightings got stranger. One night, I got a call from my neighbor. You alright? She asked. Yeah. Why? You just stood at my door, she said, slowly, for like 5 minutes. Didn't knock, didn't say anything, just stared. I've been sleeping. I whispered. There was a pause. No, she said. You smiled. I bought cameras, set one up in my room, one in the hallway, one by the front door. The first night, nothing. The second, nothing. But on the third night, at 2:11 a.m., I saw something that still won't leave my head. The footage shows me lying in bed, breathing steadily, then something changes. My body jerks once, then goes still, and then I sit up, except my face isn't mine, it's mine but wrong, slightly stretched, too smooth, too clean. The eyes are open, but they don't blink. I get out of bed, walk out of frame. 3 minutes later, the front door opens. I wake up that morning sore, but otherwise normal. The cameras should have shown me waking and getting out of bed, but I didn't. I was still lying there when I walked out the door. 2 versions of me, one asleep, one awake. I asked my doctor if this could be some advanced form of sleepwalking or dissociative identity disorder. He laughed nervously. Maybe you're dreaming that you're awake, he said. But I wasn't dreaming, because I started finding things: shoes by the door wet with mud I didn't walk through, receipts for places I didn't go, text messages sent at 3 a.m., conversations I didn't remember. One was with my boss, looking forward to starting early. But I hadn't texted him, and when I asked about it, he said you already came in, spent an hour in the office yesterday, before disappearing. The worst came when I woke up in my kitchen, standing staring at the wall with blood on my hands. It wasn't mine. No one else was in the apartment, and written on the wall in smears were 4 words: stay asleep, haze better. I stopped sleeping, tried staying awake for 2 nights straight, drank coffee, slammed energy drinks, played loud music. It worked for a while. But on the 3rd night, I passed out only for 20 minutes, but that was all it needed. When I woke up, the apartment was rearranged, photos turned upside down, fridge wide open, the bedroom mirror cracked down the middle. And on the bed, a note in my handwriting: I like it better when you're gone. Friends started avoiding me, they said. I was acting strange, laughing at the wrong times, mispronouncing my own name, hugging them too tightly. They didn't say it outright, but I saw it in their eyes. They didn't recognize me. Not completely. I confronted the mirror once, asked it, who are you? When I'm not here, and something smiled back, not in the reflection but behind it. I don't sleep anymore. I take naps, micro sleeps, 10 seconds here, 30 seconds there. But it's getting harder, because every time I close my eyes, he wakes up and I don't know how much longer it'll come back. Last night I heard my voice from the other room, whispering, laughing, saying things I've never said out loud. I stood by the bedroom door and listened to myself whisper, I'm almost permanent now, so if you see me out in public late at night, eyes to wide smile, to still don't speak to me, it might not be me anymore. Because my twin only exists when I sleep, and haze starting to dream too. It's one thing to feel like you're being watched. It's another to realize the person watching you is you, and they're already in your bed. It started 1 week ago. On a night that felt like every other, I brushed my teeth, turned out the lights, crawled under the sheets, and scrolled on my phone until my eyelids got heavy. Nothing unusual until I woke up at 3:17 a.m. disoriented. The air felt thick, my mouth was dry. I reached for the glass of water on the nightstand to knock it over, and that's when I heard it breathing heavy slow right beside me. I turned my head and froze. There was someone in my bed facing away from me. Same hair, same body shape, same gray t-shirt I was wearing, lying perfectly still. My brain stumbled for an explanation. Sleep paralysis, a dream. Was it a mirror? Somehow no, I was awake, and there were two of me, one still, one frozen in place, watching. I couldn't see its face, but something about its posture felt wrong. To still, not the natural kind of sleep you fall into, but performed like it was waiting for me to notice. I whispered hello. It didn't answer, didn't twitch, so I reached out. My fingers barely grazed its shoulder, and it turned. Its face was mine, identical. But the eyes, they didn't blink. The smile was too wide. Its skin too pale like wax, and it spoke with my voice, but hollow. You're the dream now. Then it lunged. I don't remember screaming. I just remember waking up on the floor, drenched in sweat, gasping. The bed was empty. The clock read 3:18 a.m., only a minute had passed. I convinced myself it was a night terror, sleep-induced hallucination. Stress maybe, but the next night, I hesitated before going to bed, left the light on, laid down slowly, waited. Nothing happened for hours, nothing. Then at 3:17 a.m., I heard it again, breathing, and when I turned over there, it was lying on its back. This time my eyes open, watching me. I didn't sleep again. Over the next 2 days, I tried everything: coffee, pills, noise machines. I even called a sleep specialist. She said I was experiencing hypnagogic hallucinations, the mind blurring reality as it falls asleep. But I know the difference between a dream and something real, because that night, I set up a camera. The footage showed me sleeping soundly until 3:17, then the bed shifted, the mattress depressed as if someone had climbed in, but I didn't move. Then something sat up my face, expressionless, glancing around, looking directly into the camera and smiling. Then the screen went black. When it resumed, I was sleeping again, alone. I moved the camera the next night to face the closet mirror. At 3:17, the doppelganger appeared again, but this time, it didn't climb in. It crawled out of the mirror, slowly twisting unnaturally, and when it reached the bed, it looked into the camera, leaned close, and whispered, "In getting more comfortable." I threw the mirror out, smashed it with a hammer, tossed every shard, but that night the bed was warm. Before I got in, the sheets pulled back, and on the pillow, a note in my handwriting: "Don't fight it, we both need sleep." I tried to escape, booked a hotel, used a false name, drove 3 hours away. The first night there was silent. Then, at 3:17, a knock on the door. No one there, just a folded gray t-shirt my size. Now I see it, even when am awake, in reflections in dark windows, in dreams I don't remember having. Sometimes I wake up to find my phone open to photos of me sleeping from angles no one else could have taken. The bed sheets smell like someone else's skin. My toothbrush is damp when I haven't used it. I keep hearing myself say things I didn't mean. Last night, I woke up in bed, but something was wrong. My limbs felt stiff, my chest heavy. I couldn't speak, and next to me I was sitting up, looking down at me, smiling. He leaned in and said softly, "You're sleeping so well now," and I understood. He's not visiting anymore. I am, because the person in my bed looks like me. But he isn't. I am the dream now, and he is awake. I used to sleep like a rock. No dreams, no tossing, no waking up before the alarm, but that changed when I moved back in with my parents. They said it was just temporary. A few months, get back on my feet, save money. They welcomed me back like nothing had changed, like I was still their quiet, polite son who never caused trouble. But lately they've been acting strange, avoiding eye contact, whispering when I walk into a room, and last week my mom said something I can't forget, "You're so talkative at night now. We love that you stay up and chat with us, except I go to sleep at 10 p.m. sharp every night and I never leave my room." At first I laughed it off. "Maybe you're dreaming," I said. But she looked confused, almost offended. "No, sweetheart," she replied. "We have full conversations. You sit in the kitchen, you ask about our day. You told me last night you're thinking of moving abroad." I hadn't even left my bed. I started checking my phone. No calls, no texts. No activity past 10 p.m., but my parents insisted. "You're different when you're tired, softer, smiling more." I didn't know how to respond. I've never been the smiling more type. I set up a camera in my room, pointed directly at my bed. I just needed to confirm what I already knew, that I didn't go anywhere at night, that it was all in their heads. But the next morning, the camera footage told a different story. At 12:41 a.m., I sat up, not groggy, not slow. I moved like I'd been wide awake the whole time. I stood up, smiled directly at the camera, and walked out of the room. The timestamp showed I didn't return until 4:19 a.m. Then I crawled back into bed, folded my hands neatly over my chest, and closed my eyes. I remembered none of it. That day I asked my dad what we'd talked about the night before. He hesitated. "You were asking us about the house, the layout, the doors. You seemed curious about the locks. What else?" He frowned. "You kept asking about your childhood, but in third person, like it wasn't yours." That night I stayed awake, pretended to sleep. At 12:40 a.m., I felt something like a switch flipped in my body, and I sat up. Even though I didn't want to, I watched my hands move, not mine, somehow pulling the blanket back, placing my feet on the floor. Then I stood. I saw my reflection in the mirror. It smiled at me. I wasn't smiling, but he was. I followed it, me down the hallway. It moved confidently, calmly entered the kitchen. My parents were there sipping tea. He sat down with them, folded his hands, and said, "Thank you for trusting me with this. Life, he'll be asleep soon." Permanently, I ran back to my room, slammed the door, locked it. The thing in the kitchen stayed there until morning. When I checked the camera footage again, it showed nothing, just me sleeping now. My parents think I'm losing my mind. They say I've been acting strange in the daytime, to saying things I don't remember, leaving notes around the house in handwriting I don't recognize, calling them mother and father. I've never used those words in my life. Last night I left a note for myself. "If you're reading this, you haven't turned yet. Stay awake. Never let him speak again." But when I woke up this morning, there was a second note beside it, in my handwriting. "Too late. They already like me more today." My parents hugged me longer than usual. They looked at me like I was something precious. But when I said, "Do you know who I am?" they just smiled and said, "Of course we do, dear." But their eyes were full of fear. "I'm not sure who they think I am anymore. I'm not sure who's writing this, but I know one thing: at night, he talks, and soon he won't stop." It started the week I stopped dreaming. I used to have vivid dreams, technicolor nonsense, flying, falling, forgetting my homework even though I'm 28. But lately when I close my eyes, there's nothing, just blackness, and then I wake up somewhere else. The first time it happened, I dismissed it as a nightmare, one of those turreal lucid trips that leaves you disoriented for hours. I'd woken up in a small apartment I didn't recognize. Same furniture, different arrangement, same face in the mirror, but older. Tired. There was a woman's voice in the background, yelling about breakfast being late, but I lived alone. When I blinked, I was back in my bed. Then it happened again and again, until a pattern formed. Every night, I fall asleep. I wake up in someone else's Life, but that someone is me, not a dream version, not a metaphor, it's me, same birthmark, same memories, same face. But a different life sometimes, in married sometimes, I have a scar I don't recognize. Once I had a limb. Once I had a child, a little girl, who hugged me like I was her entire world, and each time I look in the mirror and whisper which one is real. At first it was fascinating. I kept a notebook, logged every detail, compared memories, noticed differences. In one world, my parents had divorced. In another, my mother had died when I was 10. In one, I never went to college. In one, I was rich, confident, cruel, and sometimes terrifyingly. The other me knows. In there one night, I fell asleep in my real bed, and woke up in a downtown penthouse. Same face, same eyes, but a voice behind me whispered, "You shouldn't be here tonight." It was him, me. Standing in the hallway, wearing a smirk that didn't belong to either of us. "I've been waiting," he said. "I think it's time we stopped sharing." The next morning, I woke up back in my world's apartment, intact. No smirking doppelganger in sight, but something felt off. My phone had unfamiliar contacts. My fridge was stocked with food ID, "Never eat," a post-it on the bathroom mirror. Read, "Drink more water, you're killing." This body I hadn't ridden, that I tried staying awake 2 days straight, caffeine alarms, rubber bands snapping on my wrist. But sleep comes eventually, and when it did, I didn't come back, not for 3 days, and when I did, someone had lived in my skin. Paid my bills, cleaned my place, texted my friends better than I ever had. My best friend called me, said I sounded normal again. Said it was nice that I finally seemed like myself, only I hadn't spoken to him in weeks. He had now. I fall asleep afraid. Because each night, I don't just visit, I switch. He gets my world, my choices, my body, and I get whatever life he decides to leave behind. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's hell. Once I woke up with blood on my hands, and no memory of who I'd been last night. I tried something new. I wrote on my arm with a permanent marker. In the original, when I woke up this morning, it was crossed out. Underneath, a new message in perfect handwriting. "Not anymore." I think haze taking over, not just my life, all of them. Every time I sleep, he spreads further, stepping into another world, another version of me. Haze, smarter, stronger, more decisive. He doesn't want to switch anymore, he wants to replace. So if you're reading this and you think you're safe, if you wake up one day and your room is just slightly wrong, your coffee tastes different, your mother's eyes blink a half second slower than you remember, your dog growls at you for no reason, stay awake, because when I sleep he wakes up, and soon he won't need me at all. We'd only been living together for 6 months. The new apartment was quiet, old, with strange angles and crooked corners, but the rent was cheap, and we told ourselves it had character. Sarah and I had been solid, comfortable, safe. We laughed a lot, shared books, fell asleep holding hands, but lately things had changed. She started waking up confused, on edge. Sometimes she'd look at me like I was a stranger, and every time I asked what was wrong, she'd just say I had the strangest dream. I didn't press "everyone has nightmares," until one night she woke up screaming, and I was already awake. I remember the exact time, 3:28 a.m. She gasped sharply, eyes snapping open, fingers clutching the sheets. And then she turned to me, pale, shaking. "You were standing over me," she whispered. What? She blinked, confused. "I saw you. I was dreaming, I think, but it felt real. You were at the foot of the bed, just staring. You looked wrong." I sat up, wide-eyed. I never got out of bed. She stared at me for a long time, then said, "That's what scares me." The next night, she didn't fall asleep right away. She kept glancing at me like she was waiting for something to change. Eventually she drifted off, and just like the night before, I lay there listening to the silence until Slowly she sat up. Her eyes were open, but glazed, unfocused. She turned her head toward me to slowly smile, but the kind of smile that feels memorized. Then she whispered in my voice, "You're still asleep." I jumped up. She dropped back onto the bed. Like a puppet with cut strings, when I shook her awake, she gasped and clung to me like she was drowning. "I dreamed I was you," she sobbed. And I was watching myself sleep, but it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like I was trapped. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, and I don't think she did either. It got worse. Every night, one of us would wake up already being watched by the other. And every time we did, we had no memory of moving. One morning, I found her standing in the kitchen barefoot. Eyes vacant, just staring at the coffee maker. She didn't respond to her name. When I touched her arm, she blinked and suddenly screamed. "You were just outside the window," she yelled. "I saw you, but I've been here the whole time," I said. She started crying. I know. We set up a camera, pointed it at the bed, left it running overnight. The next morning, we watched the footage. At 3:28 a.m., Sarah sat up, but so did I, both of us. At the same time, we turned to each other and smiled the same way. No blinking, no speaking, just sitting there, grinning like twins, in a broken mirror. At 3:34, we both laid back down in sync, as if nothing happened. Neither of us remembered it. The apartment felt heavier every day, like the air had a weight. Our shadows felt a second. Slower mirrors no longer reflected what we remembered wearing. Once I walked past our hallway mirror and saw Sarah behind me, but when I turned, she wasn't there. She was asleep on the couch. Then came the night I'll never forget. I woke up, or thought I did. The room was dark, silent. Sarah was next to me, except she wasn't breathing. Her eyes were open wide, unblinking. I sat up, heart hammering. Sarah, she didn't move, didn't blink. Then she whispered, "You're dreaming. I'm the one who's awake now," and smiled. I tried to wake her, but my hands passed right through her, like mist, like I was the one who wasn't real. I stumbled into the bathroom, flicked on the light. No reflection, none, not even a shadow behind me. I screamed myself awake, this time for real. I checked the time, 3:28 a.m. Sarah sat up beside me at the same moment. We both turned to each other in the dark, terrified, breathing hard. "I had a dream," she whispered. "That you were watching me sleep." "I had the same one," I said. We stared, and then someone knocked on the bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. We live alone now. We sleep in shifts. One stays awake while the other sleeps, but even then things slip. Once Sarah said she talked to me while I was asleep. I hadn't responded, but I nodded and whispered, "He won't wake up again." I don't know who we are anymore. I don't know which version of us is real. But I know this: every night at 3:28, we switch. One of us wakes up, one of us watches, and one of us isn't coming back. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend, no work, no plans, just a couple of nights at the cabin. I'd rented in the woods. I needed the break. My head had been spinning lately. Stress, burnout, and those strange dreams that blurred too closely with reality. The kind that made you second guess whether you were awake at all. The cabin was old, with warped windows and creaky floors, but charming in its own way. A single bed, a fireplace, and silence thick enough to drown in. I fell asleep fast that night, and when I woke up, she was already sitting at the edge of the bed. At first I thought it was a dream. She looked like me, exactly like me. Same hair, same scar under the lip, same sleep shirt I went to bed in. She didn't smile, didn't blink, she just looked at me and said, "Am you?" I froze, not in fear, not at first, just confusion. "I don't understand," I whispered. She tilted her head, mirroring mine exactly. "I woke up," she said calmly, "before you did. I've been watching you sleep." My mouth went dry. "Who are You, I asked again. She stared. I told you, Emu, but better. I woke up first. Which means I stay. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, like my limbs were half asleep, like I was sinking into the bed. She noticed. They always wake up slower, she murmured. You're not the first one. I blinked. What? She reached over and gently pressed her hand to my chest. Her hand felt exactly like mine, same warmth, same fingerprints, same everything, but I knew it wasn't me, not anymore. I shoved her hand away and scrambled out of the bed. She didn't react, just turned slowly and watched as I backed into the corner of the room. I don't know what this is, I said, shaking, but it's not real. You're not real, she smiled this time. That's what the last version said too. I ran, bolted out the front door into the cold air. The trees swayed in the dark. My car was still there. I jumped in, locked the doors, started the engine, and then I looked in the rearview mirror. She was already in the back seat, smiling. Emu, she whispered, you can't run from yourself. I woke up back in the bed alone, breath ragged, heart pounding. I leaped up and checked the mirror. Only one reflection, mine, but the doubt lingered. Had I dreamt it, hallucinated? I laughed nervously, trying to shake it off. Then I looked down at my arm and noticed something that made my blood freeze. A freckle I didn't have yesterday, right where hers had been. Since that night, I've started noticing little things. My handwriting looks cleaner, my appetite's different. I crave things I used to hate. My voice on recordings, it sounds colder. My friends say I've changed. They say I'm more confident, more decisive, but I remember who I was, and this isn't me. Last night I dreamed of the cabin again, except this time, I was the one sitting at the edge of the bed, and the one in the bed. She looked scared, confused. She asked, who are you? And without hesitation, I said, Emu, and I meant it this morning. I looked in the mirror, stared for too long. I don't remember blinking. I don't remember being afraid anymore, because the truth is, I don't know who woke up that night, but whoever she was, she's me now. It started with a dream, a strange one, vivid, weighted, almost real. In the dream, I stood outside my own apartment, watching through the living room window as I sat on the couch, perfectly relaxed, flipping through a book I don't remember owning. But I wasn't dreaming. He was. At first, I thought it was normal sleep confusion. You know, the kind where you're half aware, detached from your body, but this felt different in the dream. I could feel the cold in my fingers, the texture of the doorknob. I tried to go inside. The door was locked. I knocked the version of me inside, didn't even glance up, just kept reading, smiling like he belonged there. Like I didn't. I woke up sweating, sat upright, breathing hard. The room was still dark, still quiet. I chalked it up to stress, but something felt off, a vague sense of displacement, like waking up on the wrong side of a mirror. I walked past the hallway mirror and paused. The reflection blinked a second late. The next night, the dream came back. This time, I was outside my apartment, building my building. Same windows, same stairwell, same broken porch light. I tried the front door, locked. I climbed the fire escape. Through the window, I saw myself cooking in the kitchen, moving like I'd done it 1,000 times, humming softly. I banged on the glass. He turned and smiled. But it wasn't a normal smile, it was practiced mocking. And then he closed the curtain. I woke up with mud on my feet. Not a dream. Somehow I'd left the house, walked barefoot into the street. But I never opened the door, and the locks were still engaged from the inside. I started staying awake longer, afraid of what would happen if I let go. I slept in shifts, 20 minutes here, 10 minutes there, but every time I closed my eyes, he was stronger, more comfortable in my world. Each time he locked me out earlier, each time the windows were darker, each time I looked less like me. I started losing time. ID blackout in the middle of conversations, wake up with messages I didn't send people would thank me for things I never did, favors I didn't remember offering, one friend texted, weird chat last night, but am glad you opened up, I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, I set up cameras, one in the hallway, one in the bedroom, one facing my bed, the next morning, all the footage was gone, except for 15 seconds at 3:13 a.m., the camera flickered, then showed me standing by the bed, watching myself sleep, then the figure turned to the camera and said, don't wait outside too long, you might forget how to get back in. I started dreaming, while awake, walking into rooms I didn't remember entering, knowing things I'd never learned, laughing at jokes before they were told. I was becoming him, or he was becoming me, I don't know anymore. Last night I fell asleep. Despite everything in the dream, I wasn't outside this time, I was nowhere, just blackness, cold, and in the distance, I saw the lights of my apartment. Heard my own voice, laughing, music playing, footsteps moving around. I ran toward it, but there was no door, no windows, no entrance, just a wall of glass, and on the other side he waved at me, then turned off the lights. I haven't woken up since. Am trapped in this endless hallway of dreams, stuck outside my own life, watching him use my voice, where my skin live, my memories haze, talking to my friends haze, working my job haze, brushing my teeth, and I can feel myself fading like an echo that's lasted too long. If you're reading this, maybe you've seen him, maybe he looked like you, maybe the dreams have started. If they have, don't fall asleep near mirrors, don't talk to your reflection, and above all, never let your dream self close the door, because once you're locked out, you might never get back in. It began with little things. I'd wake up and find the faucet dripping, even though I always make sure to turn it off tight. My shoes would be slightly out of place, my phone would have open apps I hadn't touched in days, minor things, things you can blame on forgetfulness, on exhaustion, on maybe just not paying attention, but it kept happening, and then things started missing. At first it was a packet of chewing gum, then a hoodie, a pair of socks, then my toothbrush gone one morning and replaced by a brand new one I had no memory of buying. It didn't make sense. I live alone, I don't have guests, I keep my door locked. No one else has the key, but somehow someone was living in my apartment with me. And the worst part, I think it's me. I began recording myself at night, just to prove to myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I set up my phone camera at the foot of the bed, recording silently until the battery died, or the storage ran out. The next morning I'd scan through hours of stillness and snoring, until I found something. 3:17 a.m. I sat up, no sound, no reason. Just sat up and stared straight at the camera, eyes open, expression blank, and then I stood up. I walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, pulled out a black hoodie, the one that had vanished a week ago, put it on, and walked out of frame. I don't remember doing any of it, none, and when I checked the front door, it was locked. Bolted the chain still in place, yet I left, and worse, I came back, because in the next few minutes of footage, I reappeared at the bedroom door, walked in slowly, sat back on the bed and laid down like nothing had happened. I didn't know what to do. I was scared not just of the recordings, but of myself, because whatever was happening, it was using my body, not sleepwalking. This was different, purposeful, precise, like someone else had the keys, and was borrowing me every night. I went to a sleep clinic. Told them I was experiencing strange parasomnias. They wired me up and monitored me for a night. The report came back clean, except for one note: subject appears to wake at 3:15 a.m. and remain Still for 43 minutes, no REM sleep, no movement, no explanation, just sitting there watching. I started hiding things from myself. Taping a hair across the front door to check if it moved, writing a word "remember" in red marker across my mirror. Before sleeping in the morning, the door hair was gone, and the mirror had a new message written below my original word, "You're the dream," in the real one. I started getting text messages I didn't send, emails in my outbox I had no memory of writing to, people I didn't know. Strangers started waving at me on the street. Once someone approached and said, "Hey, last night was fun, same time tomorrow." I froze. They looked confused. "You okay? You look different today." I checked my bank account to purchases at places I've never been. One was a diner an hour away, the other a motel. The motel name sent a chill down my spine. The Quiet Rest check-in, 3:33 a.m. I drove out there. The woman at the front desk smiled as I entered. "Back so soon?" she asked. I've never been here," I said. My voice was shaking. Her smile faded. "You're not playing right." I showed her my ID. She stared for a long moment, then said, "You checked in 3 nights ago, paid in cash. You had a hood up, but yeah, it was you. You even tipped." I asked to see the room inside. It looked lived in. The bed was unmade. There were food wrappers in the trash, a note on the nightstand, scrawled in handwriting just like mine. "Hayes starting to notice. Be careful, I don't sleep much anymore. I take pills to keep myself awake. I drink coffee until my hands shake. But I can't stay up forever. Eventually my body wins, and when I wake up, even for just a second, I sometimes catch a glimpse of things that weren't there before. A phone number written on my arm, mud on my shoes. A voice in my head that isn't mine, but knows everything about me. I think in being replaced piece by piece every night. He uses my body. I fade a little more. My friends say I've changed. They like me more now, more confident, more direct, but it's not me they like, it's him. If you're reading this and this is starting to sound familiar, if you've ever woken up tired after a full night of sleep, if your body feels like it's not quite yours, if your reflection holds eye contact too long, you need to listen closely, because it's already begun. Someone is using your body while you sleep, and one day soon they might not give it back. They say mothers know their children best, that no one else can sense when something's wrong, not the way a mother can, but I wish mine hadn't noticed. I wish she hadn't seen me that night, while I was sleeping, because now she won't even look me in the eyes, and I don't think she believes I'm still her daughter. It started 3 weeks ago. I had come back home for a break, college stress, bad weather, everything piling on. Mom offered her warm smile, cooked my favorite meals, and insisted I stay in my childhood room. It had barely changed. The same wallpaper, the same bookshelf, the same creaky bed that always faced the hallway door. It felt safe. I didn't notice anything strange at first, until the dreams started every night for the past week. I've had the same dream. I'm asleep in my bed, but something is watching me from the hallway. Not standing, crouching, its limbs too long, its neck tilted unnaturally sideways. It crawls into the room slowly, silently, then stands over me just watching sometimes. It whispers in my voice, "Mom, look at me." Then I wake up sweating, panting, and terrified every time I think it's just a nightmare. But something about the dream feels real to real. Last Tuesday, I woke up to find my bedroom door slightly open. I always closed it before sleeping, always, but now it creaked open just enough to see into the hallway. It looked just like the dream that morning. Mom was quiet over breakfast. She barely spoke. Her eyes were red like she hadn't slept. When I asked if something was wrong, she shook her head and said softly, "You were talking in your sleep last night." I smiled nervously. "Weird dreams." She didn't smile back. She said, "You weren't dreaming." Then she got up and left the room. I checked my phone that afternoon and found something I didn't remember, recording a video to stop. 2:41 a.m. I pressed play. The video was shaky, taken from the hallway, like someone had held the phone just outside my room. I saw myself lying in bed motionless. Then I sat up, but my eyes were still closed. My head turned toward the hallway, toward the person filming, and I said clearly, "Don't watch this part, Mom." Then I turned and laid back down. I ran to my mom, showed her the video. She looked pale, trembling, tears filled her eyes, and she whispered, "I didn't take that video that night." She insisted on sleeping in the living room. She said the walls felt thinner in my room, that it watched from there, that she didn't want to see me sleep again. I asked what she meant. She said, "3 nights ago, I came to check on you. You weren't breathing. I froze. You were cold," she said. "Your eyes were open. I thought you'd died, but then you blinked, and you smiled at me." She looked away, voice shaking. "But it wasn't your smile." I tried staying awake. That night, I drank coffee, kept the lights on, scrolled through my phone. But around 300 a.m., my screen flickered, all my apps closed. My front camera turned on. I stared at the screen, and for a second the face looking back wasn't mine. The skin was too smooth, the mouth was slightly open like it was learning how to breathe, and the eyes, they blinked too slow, like something pretending to blink. I dropped the phone the next morning. Mom didn't speak to me at all. She stayed on the phone most of the day. I caught fragments of her whispering to someone about spirits, possession, and ancient protections. I overheard her say, "It wears her face, but I don't think it's her anymore." I tried to sleep that night with the lights on. I told myself it was all in my head, but just past 300 a.m. I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, barefoot, dragging, then a knock-knock on the door. On the wall from the inside, I screamed. My mom rushed in with a candle and salt in her hands. She didn't ask questions. She just whispered prayers and placed the salt around the bed. I begged her to tell me what was going on. She finally said it. "Something came back with you. Something that doesn't sleep." Last night was the worst. I woke up to my mom standing over me, tears in her eyes. She was holding a knife. She whispered, "I know this isn't you." I panicked, shouted her name, screamed, begged. She froze, dropped the knife, sank to the floor and said, "Then prove it. Don't go to sleep tonight. Let me see you stay human." When the clock hits 3, it's nearly 300 a.m. now. She's watching me from the hallway. And I'm trying to stay awake, but I'm so tired, and there's this voice whispering inside me. Not outside, inside. It says, "Close your eyes, let me see her one more time." If you're reading this, if someone tells you they saw you sleeping, ask them what you looked like. And if they say you were smiling when you shouldn't have been, don't go to sleep. It started with exhaustion, not the regular kind, not the after-work, long day stayed up too late kind. This was different. This was bonneted, like something was pulling me inward. Every night, no matter how much I slept, I woke up feeling like I hadn't rested at all, and worse, I began to feel like I hadn't been the one sleeping. At first I thought I was just overworked. A stressful month, late nights, too much coffee, the usual. But the dreams started coming, sharp, vivid dreams. I couldn't remember when I woke up, only that I had been elsewhere, not a place, a state, a feeling. Like floating somewhere dark, while someone else walked around in my body, and every morning, I'd find little things moved. My laptop was open, when I swore I'd shut it, my shoes would be muddy, my phone would have photos I never took, blurry, dark hallway shots. One day I found a selfie, my face, but not my expression. Wide eyes grinning, unblinking, I started recording myself while I slept, phone, camera, voice recorder. I just needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind, but all I got for the first few nights was silence, restless, turning the occasional sleep mumble. Until the fifth night. That night, the camera recorded me sitting up at 3:12 a.m. Eyes open, smiling, and then in a voice that wasn't quite mine, slightly distorted to calm, I said, "Sleep now, it's my turn." I deleted the video, I don't know why, maybe because, deep down, I recognized that voice. It was mine, but older, hungrier, used to wearing my skin the next day. I asked my neighbor if he ever saw anything strange at night. He laughed nervously. "You're a heavy sleepwalker, huh?" I blinked. "I've never sleepwalked." He frowned. "Dude, I saw you out front 2 nights ago, just standing there in the rain, wearing no shoes, smiling up at my window." I felt sick that night. I locked everything, bedroom door, windows, even tied a belt around my ankle and the bed frame. Didn't matter, because I woke up outside in the woods behind my building, barefoot, mud on my hands, and when I got home trembling, breathless, I found something scrawled on the bathroom mirror in soap, "You're getting harder to put back." I stopped sleeping. I tried caffeine walks at 3 a.m. reading, until my vision blurred, but eventually the body gives in, and every time I slept, he came out. I started losing time, an hour here, a night there. Once I blinked at my desk at work, and woke up in a stranger's car 40 minutes away. My messages were full of things I never sent people, said I called them, and whispered strange questions. Do you feel it too? Would you let go if someone else wanted in? Have you ever seen yourself blink out? I visited a sleep clinic. They wired me up, told me I had abnormal REM patterns, but nothing medical to explain the blackouts that night. While sleeping in their lab, the technicians heard me speak. The audio transcript said, "Hayes tired now, in the better one, anyway. He doesn't need to be awake anymore." I checked out of the clinic at 400 a.m. I don't remember doing that, but I signed the papers. In my handwriting back home, I tore the mirror off the wall, threw away the cameras, disconnected everything, but I still heard him. Sometimes in my head, sometimes in my own voice, and every time I got close to sleep, he'd whisper, "You're not the first. I wear people like blankets, you're so soft inside." I tried staying in the light. I read that darkness made him stronger, but light bulbs shattered, flashlights died. And then I noticed my reflection was wrong, a second to slow blinking when I didn't, smiling when I wasn't. That's when I knew he wasn't trapped in sleep anymore. He was spreading. I left voice notes to myself every night before I passed out to remember to warn one of them. My last one ends with this: "If you're hearing this and you're me, then am still inside, fight him, don't let go. Don't let go, don't." Then silence and a chuckle, my voice again. "She Hayes resting now. It's my turn. I don't know how much longer it'll be here, how much longer it'll be me, but if you ever wake up somewhere you don't remember walking to, if your reflection smiles first, if you hear yourself whisper in the dark. Run, because the voice will say, "Sleep now, it's my turn," and when you close your eyes, you may never wake up again. It started as a joke, a conversation between friends about doppelgangers' glitches in the Matrix, that kind of late-night weirdness people laugh about, until it feels too real. We talked about mirrors simulation theory, how you'd never truly know if a copy of you was walking around, living your life while you slept. I laughed too, until I stopped waking up in my own body. The first time it happened, I didn't notice right away. There was a strange sense of lag, like I was behind my own eyes watching. But not driving. I'd blink, and find myself in a different room. I'd reach for a glass, and it was already in my hand. Like someone had skipped ahead in the timeline, and I was just tagging along. Then came the gaps. Hours would vanish. I'd check my phone and see texts I didn't remember sending, browser history I didn't recall, opening places I never visited in my GPS logs. One night, I blacked out at 900 p.m. and woke up in a locked room. My bedroom door blocked from the outside. My journal was open beside me. One entry: stay inside, don't come out again, in my handwriting, but I never wrote it. It escalated fast. I'd hear myself whispering, not out loud but from inside, thoughts that weren't mine, memories I didn't live. A second voice thinking alongside me, correcting me, laughing once in the mirror. My reflection blinked twice. When I didn't, I froze, then it smiled. I didn't. That night, I dreamed of falling. Endless falling, through mirrors, through tunnels of static and screaming, and at the bottom I saw me standing, grinning, hand outstretched. He said, "You've had your time, let me show you how it's really done." I woke up gasping. And I wasn't alone, not in the room in my head. I could feel him now, the copy, not a twin, not a ghost, just a version of me. More confident, more efficient, smarter, even cruel in ways. Him not. He started small, making choices, ordering food I didn't like, calling people I hadn't spoken to in years, wearing clothes I never bought. Then he changed passwords, then he locked me out of my accounts, then out of my own voice. Now I only get small windows, flickers of control, a few minutes in the shower, a silent scream in the mirror. Once I managed to scratch a message on my desk with a paperclip before he shoved me back in. I still in here. I don't know where I am. It's not a place, it's a space. Mental cold, no senses, just waiting, floating behind my own eyes. Watching him walk, eat, live, all in my body. I hear what he says, feel what he feels, but I can't stop him. He talks to my friends, my family. He flirts, laughs, gets promoted. They think I'm doing better than ever. They say, "You've changed." I have, but not how they think. Yesterday, I saw a message scrawled in the bathroom mirror: "You're not useful anymore." Today, he deleted all my old journals, my photos, my playlists, everything that made me me. Haze erasing me. So I'm writing this not as a cry for help. There's no one left to help me. This is a warning. If you ever feel like you're watching yourself, if you lose time, if your body does something before you tell it to, it's starting, and if you look in the mirror and see yourself blink at the wrong time, run, because once your copy takes over, you don't get to come back.